Bravestarr the movie. I wanted to do something with Native Americans. In space. Cowboys, Indians, rockets, heroes, and bad guys. And we had the perfect way to do it.
New Texas was the roughest of planets. They needed 1,000 lawmen. They got one. Bravestarr. Possessing the eyes of a hawk, the strength of a bear, the ears of the wolf, and speed of a puma, Marshal Bravestarr used his powers to protect the innocent. Aided by his sidekicks 3030 and Judge J.B., Bravestarr faced the evil Stampede, his servant Tex Hex, and an ugly array of rogues. But every legend has a beginning, and the feature film Bravestarr The Legend told it. Called by many critics one of the most dazzling jewels in the crown of Filmation Studios, Bravestarr featured astonishing effects, heart-pounding action, and moral lessons. Now, you can strap on your lasers, mosey on into the dusty streets, and learn how this dazzling and dramatic science fiction feature film came to be, from the writers and artists who created Bravestarr. Saddling up with Bravestarr The Legend.
And so, it begins.
Bob Ford and Steve Hayes wrote the movie. Bob is an extraordinary guy, and he put his whole soul into doing something that he really felt eminently appropriate for him. And fact is, he was the guy you saw in the poster, leaning up against the wall, and all that stuff in the background, stuff flying in the sky, Indians, cowboys, you name it, he did it. Tom Tataranovitz was the director, and actually I think it's his first feature direction that he ever did. And he had worked on the storyboard, and he really knew this. He knew the picture backwards and forwards, and he brought a lot of his own feelings into the thing. The kiss was his idea.
Every year I go back to where I grew up in Detroit for a fishing trip with old friends. And in about 1985-86, I went back from my fishing trip in the fall, came back to work after a week to be called up to the production head's office. And I thought, well, I'm in trouble now. I don't know what I did, but I did something, and that wasn't unexpected. And I got there and they said, you're going to direct the Bravestarr feature. And I was really surprised. I'd seen some of the development, thought it was pretty cool. I just never really thought about it. And all of a sudden I was directing this feature film. And so I was thrilled by it, and dove in, started looking at all kinds of westerns, all my classic films. I was trying to figure a way to make it for the budget they had and make it look like far more than its budget, something I call geometric filmmaking. If something costs a dime, make it look like it costs $1. Don't just double how it looks, make it like 10 times better, and just figure out how to do it with different aspects. So it was a really great challenge, and I really appreciated getting the chance.
Bravestarr had to be the most anticipated show after He-Man that I worked on. All of us were so excited about what we were going to do with Bravestarr that we just couldn't wait. Everything about it was exciting. Bravestarr came along. We had our storyboard department, our layout department, our animators, all really fine-tuned to a high level. And so we were all ready to do this project. Bravestarr had a master plan. We were not just doing a series, we were doing a feature film that would launch the series and be followed up by the regular episodes. So we were working on the feature. My role primarily was one of coordinating storyboard production, and also just some continuity things with the layout department and with storyboard, and dealing with the various props and settings and locations. We had to understand the world of New Texas and the characters to adequately present them for the big screen.
And I'd like all of you to meet a few of my deputies. They're all gonna help me make this the kind of planet I like.
The characters in the movie are Bravestarr. Obviously, he is the star. He's an American of Indian descent with a great great bad guy, Tex Hex, which actually he was developed for another series we were doing, and I liked him so much I said, let's save him, do a picture around him, and that's how all this started. Judge Bean was really based on the real character, Roy Bean, the Western judge who was a hanging judge. But we have a young lady in this, so we didn't call her Roy, we called her Judge Bean. And the prairie people were the little animals that are always included for the funny parts.
Looks like you outdrew me fair and square, Marshal. Too bad I don't play by the rules.
I did some early animation on 3030. I did the run cycles and some of the more broader animation of, broader meaning the more exaggerated animation of 3030, because he was like a sort of a very dynamic, sort of extroverted character, and you could do a lot more with his face than, say, the more realistic characters. I did a lot of physical action of 3030 doing things. I always kind of enjoyed him because he was so over the top, you know, like he wouldn't just enter a room, he'd like blow the door off, you know, or he wouldn't just tap somebody on the shoulder, he'd put his fist through the wall and grab you and pull you through, and that was kind of fun. To have a character that's so out there and everything was enjoyable.
Without question, my favorite character in Bravestarr would have to be 3030. I really liked the character of the horse, I liked the voice, I liked the fact that he could change from a mechanical horse into this humanoid kind of figure. Everything about it was fun to me. I liked the relationship between the hero and his steed. He had good lines, drawing him was fun, animating him was fun, the relationship was fun. Everything about that was what I really looked forward to on the feature. And I thought the sequence where they meet was probably the best sequence in the movie. It got to do the mood, got to do everything we've been talking about with shadows and environments and pacing and action and comedy and drama and male bonding. Everything that goes into making a good little piece was in that sequence.
As I recall, one of the most interesting roles I had was Bravestarr. Now, before this, I'd started to get a reputation of doing, you know, character voices. I'd do the villains on things. I did the Ghostbuster. Wait a minute now. So I do all sorts of, you know, interesting ducks, dogs, and villains, but I was never a leading man. Well, here I was given the opportunity to be a leading man in a character voice or in a cartoon series. And I didn't have the equipment. I was still a little bit green and like a tenor, so I had to go down as low as I could. And I remember that Lou told me, look, we don't want any big butch guy here. We want to have a kind of a gentle hero. So I thought, well, I'll try to do him like he's a hero, but he eats quiche. So I got his, and I remember telling myself, Pat, keep low. So that's where I got this, and just did a slight Texas accent, and that was Bravestarr. So of all the wonderful, joyful performances in series we did, that sticks out in my mind because it was such an opportunity.
Me too.
You're afraid?
Of course. Did you expect me not to be?
I tried to record with a full ensemble cast, and in general, that's how it worked, and it worked much better. It was sort of like a radio play, and the actors could play off of each other, and you get better performances. And I let them get crazy and ad-lib and you know, get their juices going. And then sometimes I'd have to rein them in a little bit, like, okay, let's go back to the script, please. But in general, it was an ensemble, and we'd go through the show from beginning to end, so you have a real sense of continuity, and it's a real story, as opposed to just little isolated sentences that don't mean anything.
At Filmation, they didn't have guests. So what happened is the entire cast did every single character that was on the screen. Even Erica and Lou would come in like cobbler's elves at midnight, and all of a sudden magically come up with the extra characters. And so we really got a workout. Now when we recorded these, we always did them in order. We never would, for example, if I had a scene with myself as Bravestarr and Thunderstick, you're gonna get it now. And who's telling me what to do? Well, I'll tell you. You know, we had to go back and forth with it. So, hey, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. What's he talking about?
Well, I was talking about whether you guys got together.
Well, I didn't know about that. So we had to go one after another. Now, sometimes we'd take a pause between those lines, but we never went in, as some production companies do, and do one character and then go do the next character and the third.
One of the amazing things when you're working with truly gifted voiceover actors is that the number of completely different voices that can come out of them is phenomenal. That it's a sin if you don't use all those. So why get 12 people when I can have 4 people who can do 12 people great? That's really what made the most sense. We weren't casting with names like goes on nowadays. We were casting with people who were completely professional and could do a ton of different voices. Whenever I was directing a session, I thought one of the most important things was that the atmosphere be one of fun. I was never really heavy, and if you do it my way or no way. Creating an environment and fun, and what I really liked to do was kid around with the actors a lot to get them going, and I just enjoyed that whole process.
Something interesting about Filmation is they did not rely on vocal effects or post-processing of the voice. For example, when I did Thunderstick in Bravestarr, I played a mechanical hick and he sort of talked like this, right? So it was up to me to create that kind of mechanical sound.
I really loved to get involved with all sorts of things. I loved sound, and I loved whether it's voices or whether it's sound effects. I even got to a place where when we were working on the Bravestarr movie, I wanted to work on some of the sound design. There was these big sort of skeleton, huge cow kind of things at the end that were tearing down the place. And I remember getting involved with my little Mac Plus and my jam box and mixing together Breaking Bones and Howling Wind and all these different sounds, and giving those to the sound guys to lay in with during that sequence. I really enjoyed the sound design work. By the time we hit Bravestarr, we're getting pretty sophisticated with our sound work and the sound design, and people are really taking this stuff seriously. I mean, it may have been just cartoons, but it was real important to everybody who was working on it.
I grew up loving Westerns, that's true. I used to go to Western serials and sit there for 10 hours and watch the same serial with Gene Autry and a beautiful Indian princess. It was wonderful. Bravestarr the movie. Science fiction and Westerns can't do any better in life. And there's great visuals in this. We got a combination of prairies, mountains, and foreign and exotic looking villages. It's got, visually it was a wonderful picture. It is a wonderful picture.
The visual look of Bravestarr was pretty much set by the time I came on board. As far as what the character looked like, as far as what the story, the script had been done already. And so my job became to direct it and try to direct it very well. But they were also open to me changing things, adding things, trying to figure out how to make it more cinematic. To get me involved in the filming of the Bravestarr feature, they assigned me the job of shooting and directing the rotoscope that was the live-action reference for the animation for the stock package to be used first in the feature and then subsequently in the series. So we went out to Ventura, got a studio, and shot an actor and an actress going through various poses that we knew we could use for stock. And that got me familiar with what they were about. And I also was able to go, okay, well, this is a Western, so I do need the down shot to look at the two guys walking at each other. That's going to figure in many, many episodes because people don't do gun battles in Bravestarr, but there's the face down. The task at hand in doing the Bravestarr feature became how to get a lot of production value for the budget while doing something that could be worked in the series without being detected. And to that end, I decided that it would be good to put shadows on characters. Now, back then, very few animated products had shadows on. If you looked at the Disney features from that point in time, they didn't do shadows. Shadows can be a real technical nightmare if you're not careful. But I thought, okay, if we just do this and we pick the sequences, I didn't do it in every one, but in certain sequences with lighting, like when Bravestarr's talking to the shaman in his cave, or a night scene, adding shadows gave it a production value that just really pushed it to another level. But for the TV show, because shadows are a separate level, you don't have to shoot them. and they could use it, and so that was a quality concern for the feature.
When it came time to do the series, after the feature film was finished, we mined a lot of, well, curium, but we also mined a lot of animation from the feature film to use in the series. The transformation of the town, a lot of the action sequences, everything, there was just rich, excellent animation, and that we incorporated in our stock system and our same-as system, or otherwise known as our reuse system. With as much anticipation that Bravestarr had, it is a tragedy that it didn't last longer. There were some things that just didn't fall into place in the right order, in the right timing. We had a toy line going out, we had a feature film that was going to go into theaters, and we had the series to come on in the fall. They had to hit at the right times to build the momentum so the series would be a success.
If you need me, I'll be around.
Bravestarr the film was introduced by the feature, and it introduced all the characters basically that were used in the features, the whole series. You got the little guys coming out of the earth, the big guys coming out of heaven. You got the Indians in the beginning. You got all the background, and the film, unfortunately, didn't find an audience. I know. I can't tell you why. It's the fate of what happens in these things. It's the best film and the best series that I ever was involved with. It was fascinating. It may have been a little too old for the audience. I hope with this release, you fans will find something that you've never seen before on television, and really an extraordinary, wonderful film with great characters.
I'm surprised and delighted at how many people remember my work in the 80s. I try to give them as many interviews as possible, email interviews, and be as responsive as I can. And it's always a pleasure for a performer to know that there's an audience out there. That's why I got into it, and so it's a pleasure to hear from fans, to know that I delighted them when they were sitting Indian style in front of the TV at 6 years old. I think my job goes along with, cereal. They were eating cereal and listening and watching me.
It's thrilling to think that the Bravestarr movie DVD is coming out, because it gives an audience a chance to find something that's been kind of lost out there as far as animation history. It was a show that came out towards the end of filmation. All the stakes were changing in animation. Direction was paid everywhere, so it couldn't have the hit that it should have been. And the feature had a lot to it. For a young audience, it had a very scary villain. He was very dark, much more menacing than you expect. He'd be drooling. The hero was a really cool-looking hero. If I were a young boy, it'd be the kind of hero I would want to draw. The women were very pretty. They had very rounded personalities. There was a real relationship in the film between JB and Bravestarr. It had a message to show about discrimination. That's really a good thing that is almost totally lacking in all aspects of children's film these days. And so it's a really worthwhile project.
The world is really different now from how it was when we were making shows. And I think that what we were able to do, create all inside of this country, all inside of our one little building there, is really phenomenal. I know that we stretched every cent out to put it on the screen. And I'm really proud of what we did, and kind of, the kind of tricks that we had to do in order to make it look like a big production. It's easy to do big things when you got tons of money. It's hard to do big things when you don't have tons of money, but boy is it creative. And there is a lot of creativity running around Filmation. Maybe not a lot of money, but a lot of creativity.
Bravestarr is one of the best productions that Filmation did. It was, I think, their crowning achievement. I believe that as more people discover and rediscover it through this DVD set, that it will take its place in the halls of achievement in animation.
I really believe the Bravestarr feature is a genuinely entertaining movie. I know when we showed it to the whole crew, Lou rented a theater nearby. Everybody seemed to love it. It was fun. It was something that everybody was so proud of working on, and the story worked. It felt like a film. It didn't feel like something that was a TV show that kind of made it to film. We really, I believe, pulled it off, and this is credit to the crew, pulled off something that met the entertainment standards of what it should be.
Here's my fondest memory of working with Filmation. Erica Schreimer used to have to, keep us, it was chaos, and she would contain it, although not dampen our spirits, because that's what an animation recording session is all about. Wild and woolly, ad-libs, lines that don't fit in, retake them, but we were amused. But she would keep us contained. But then once in a while she'd have to get a little taciturn with us. So at one point, I remember one show, she said, okay, knock it off, let's get back to work. And she used to have a rolling chair that she used. And so just after she announces that we have to get ready, she leans back with a little bit of pride. She was a young gal then. And she went way up in the air, over backwards, and she was such a good sport that she laid there for a while and kicked her legs up, just to amuse the other children. Nice memory.